We'll call to order the meeting of the Haverford Township Zoning Hearing Board of Thursday, September 5th, 2019. Present at the front table to my far right is Ken Richardson, a voting member. Seated next to Kenny is Bill Rhodes, a voting member.
Good evening.
My far left, Jessica Vitale, a voting member.
Evening.
Next to Jessica is Ed McGargy, a voting member. And to my left, our esteemed solicitor, Bill Malone. And my name is Robert Kane, and I am the chairman for tonight. We have one decision, two continued, and one new case on the agenda tonight. And before we begin, Kenny, would you please lead us in the pledge? Thank you, Kenny. Before we proceed to the cases, Mr. Secretary. That's you, Ed.
Yes. I have like to make a motion to approve the minutes from August 15th, 2019, as distributed.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved. Our decision tonight is case Z19-20, Dwight and Suzanne Ashley, owners of 2508 Rosemont Avenue, Ardmore, PA, DC folio number 2206-0185000, who seek a variance from the provisions of section 182-711B1 to permit the construction of a 20-foot by 24-foot shed in the rear yard that is not located 10 foot further back from the rearmost portion of the house. The property is on R4 and located in the 6th ward. Ed, would you please take that decision?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I vote to approve the requested variance with the following conditions. 1, a driveway will not be installed to access the new structure. 2, the structure will not be used for commercial purposes. 3, stormwater will not impact neighboring properties. 4, to be completed within 1 year of final approval. And 5, to be completed in accordance with the notes of testimony.
Okay, Jessica?
I agree.
Kenny?
I concur.
Bill?
I agree.
And so do I. That application's approved 5-0 with those conditions. Good luck. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Our first continued case is Z19-18, School District of Haverford Township, owners of the property located at 200 Mill Road, Havertown, PA, who seek variances from the provisions of section 182-602C3, building coverage, 182-602C4, front yard setback, 182-602C7, building height, and 182-602C8, impervious coverage, to allow construction of an addition to the high school for additional classrooms and updates to music arts and physical education. Property is owned INS and located in the 7th ward. Mr. Clement.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. We've been here twice before. This board has very thoroughly vetted this project, and there were just a few questions that the board had with respect to number of employees and buses, really. I still have with me this evening all of our consultants for this project and one sitting board member. At the end of the day, we did find out that the number of buses that currently serve the high school in the beginning of the day, in the morning, are 19. In the afternoon, there are 18 buses that serve the school. We are not going to increase any of the number of buses either in the morning or the evening. There are 214 employees at the school currently. With the additional student population that will matriculate through the school, there will be an additional 20 employees. As you know, we're adding 49 parking spaces, so we have adequate parking to accommodate those additional employees as well. With that being said, there were really no other questions that the board had. I can put on witnesses, but they're not going to testify to much more than what has already been testified to. If the board has questions, we'd be happy to call witnesses.
I think one of the things that the board had asked for at the July meeting was the enrollment study.
Yeah,
Was
and
going to be provided.
we can provide the enrollment study. We have a copy with us this evening to provide. If you want to enter it into the record as an exhibit, we'd be happy to do that.
I think the board would like to see that.
Sure. Your copy. We'll mark this as Exhibit A14, and if there's no objection, we'll have it entered into the record.
So A14 is submitted. And you have another copy of it, Joe?
That's the only copy we brought this evening.
I just want to give it to Jess because Jess is the one. Joe, which of your witnesses prepared the parking diagram?
The parking diagram was prepared by our engineer.
Want to bring them up and ask them your questions?
Yeah, for parking.
Yeah.
Just state your name for the record. Mr. Kane, would you like to have him re-sworn in? He
Yes.
was not here at our last hearing.
I'm looking for his name and trying to tie his face there. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And please state the capacity in which you appear this evening.
Andrew Schenk, SCHANCK, from Gilmore Associates. I'm the professional engineer from Gilmore Associates who prepared the sketch of the parking and site layout.
Mr. Kane, at our first hearing, he was qualified as an expert by this board.
Mr. Shank, I just wanted to, for the benefit of some people who may not have seen some of the earlier testimony or heard it or watched it on TV, I just thought going over a couple questions on the parking and the sufficiency of the parking. So we very much find the information that you guys have shared tonight to be helpful. Of course, the whole design is to accommodate up to 400 additional students that is anticipated to over the 2017 totals by 2025, and perhaps going a little bit above that eventually. But so we know that you are expecting those new students result in the need for 20 new employees. And
Yes.
so we're looking at 234 expected employees to be presumably at the maximum number that you were designing for. And that you've added 49 parking spaces. How many parking spaces are there currently on the site?
There are 211 parking spaces.
211, okay. So you have 211 parking spaces that are currently available for 214 employees.
Yes.
So where do do employees tend to carpool? Do they not all drive? Some walk? And I know you have some spaces that are probably set aside for visitors, and I'm sure students, to some extent, utilize. Is that the experience of the school district currently, I mean?
I wouldn't be able to testify to exactly how all the spaces are used. My understanding is parking is difficult at the school, and that we're trying to improve parking as much as possible.
Right.
In terms of the distribution of exactly who parks in each spot, I do not know that.
Do you know how many are set aside for visitors or non-faculty or non-employee?
I don't know the exact number, no.
With our, Lynn is probably a better witness to ask those
All right.
questions.
All right. So your goal was that notwithstanding that we're having 20 new employees and 400 new students, that 49 spaces additional would be enough to address the current parking problems and accommodate the additional employees and the additional students who do end up driving to school?
The main goal, as I understand it, and maybe Lynn can testify to some of the needs of the school itself, but as I understand it, the goal was basically to accommodate the 20 new employees and to provide, to alleviate some of the parking difficulties that were out there without excessive impervious coverage.
Okay, and so you weren't really trying to create additional parking for additional students?
My understanding is that was not the intent of the school district.
All right, thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Kenny.
211, where does that number come from? How did you come up with 211
Parking stalls? That,
existing parking?
that was from site reconnaissance and
From where?
from site reconnaissance of walking the site and looking at the site, seeing how many parking stalls are on
Do
the
you know
site.
what the existing conditions, what the parking calculation would be?
The existing parking tabulation is 211 spaces, excluding those that are on public roads.
Wait, did you calculate that or you counted it?
We counted it.
I would like a calculation. In other words, you take the square footage, you take the number of employees, just like you did for the addition.
Okay, so
So, Mr. Schenk, I think the question perhaps is better asked, if I may. Are you aware that this existing school, as it is today, is subject of a variance?
yes,
And as part of that variance, there was a parking requirement that was reduced, correct?
yes,
And that allowed for the 211 existing parking spaces that there are today. And really what we're doing now is saying that with respect to the new classrooms that are being built, the size of the classrooms that are being built, the square footage, and the number of employees being 20, we are zoning compliant with that addition. In fact, you gotta say yes.
yes.
In fact, we'd only need 39 additional spaces, correct?
Yes, we need 39 additional spaces based on the addition that is being put in and the additional
Under
employees.
current zoning.
Under current zoning.
And we're providing 49 instead.
I believe the number is 46, but yes,
46.
we are providing extra spaces.
So we're going above and beyond what is required by zoning with respect to the addition.
Yes,
And we are compliant with respect to our existing variance.
yes.
I hope that,
All right, to sum that up, you still need relief on parking.
not with respect to what we're asking for
Existing
now.
relief.
We have existing relief. We have yes. Yes, we have existing relief, and with respect to what the addition is, we don't need relief.
Let me just add one more. So you have relief now, and you don't need, you're offering more parking than the addition would otherwise require.
Yes.
Yes,
Would that, as proposed, would you no longer need your variance?
No, the variance would still be in effect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
No questions.
Ed?
No questions.
Bill, have you had enough
Well, I
sufficient time?
think you were going to allow us to get some information about like visitor parking, and of those 211, how's it divvied up?
Yeah, I think what Lynn can perhaps answer, and she's already under oath from the last hearing. Lynn, with respect to the number of the number of employees being 214,
Come up there.
that includes janitorial staff and cafeteria staff, correct?
Yes,
So not all 214 employees will be on the site at the same time, correct?
correct. The custodian staff is in the evening.
Okay. And currently, of the parking spots, of the 211 that are on site, not including any street parking sites, right? We have 211 that we've just heard. Does the school district set aside some of those 211 for non-employee parking? So they're designated as visitor parking or other purposes, so they're not really available for faculty or for employees?
I can't answer that. No, I don't know the answer to that.
Are faculty allowed to park in any spot that they can find? There's
Yeah,
nothing set aside?
there isn't currently an issue with faculty parking.
Okay, and when a visitor comes to the school, they can pull up in front of the building?
They usually
in the-
pull up in the front of the building. In those spots,
Those-
I know that that's where visitors park. I don't know if they say visitors in front of them. I don't want to testify to that. But as a frequent visitor to the high school, that's where visitors park.
Yeah, and those, so let me just ask, maybe, of those spots in front of the school that visitors are likely to use, are they within the 211?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
The 211 is the number of spots that exist today.
Got it. And about how many parking spots are in front of the building?
I would only be guessing, but just from memory, from doing it so often, I would say maybe 10
Yeah.
are against the front of the school, if you're facing the school, and then behind you are another maybe dozen that are used for, like, special needs buses and things like that, typically is what's parked there.
Thank you. I don't have anything else.
Good. Kenny?
Nothing further.
Okay. Jess?
No.
Ed? Okay. Any other issues that the board wants to address? Let me wrap it up. No? Okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Joe.
We had asked a couple times for a traffic study when school was in session to understand the impact of the additional students on the neighborhood during drop-off and pickup. And I know
Right.
that school started this week.
Sure.
So is there any way to get an actual study done instead of what was done with more of a theoretical study based on numbers?
I think that, as I recall, and we can have Mr. DiMartino come back to testify if you'd like, but at the end of the day, we feel, in his professional opinion, that what we've provided is adequate. If the township requires us to do a traffic study as part of our land development, we will have to do that. But as far as what is necessary and adequate, in Guy's professional opinion, I think that, and I'll let him testify to that, that we've provided something that we feel is accurate and reasonable based on standards that are national standards that apply directly to the school. So, Guy, you want to come on up?
Do you want to ask Guy more questions?
No.
Then don't come up.
Just a follow-up on that?
Go ahead, Ken.
In my opinion, actual is better than national standards. And from my point of view, if we could get actual, it would help.
That's not a question. Anything else you want to add, Joe?
No, I'll just add one thing. We know that these students are coming. They're here. There's no question about it. And the school district is mandated to educate them. So no matter what we do here, we need to educate these students and we need to provide space for them. We have really no choice. So the school board was tasked with doing that. They've done it in the most fiscally responsible way that they possibly could. They've provided different avenues of doing this and came to a conclusion that what they are asking for today is the least amount of relief that they need. So we thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Joe. And with that, I'll ask if there's anyone present that received certified mail that wishes to testify about this case? Anyone present that received regular mail? Any other residents of Haverford Township? With that, we'll close the record on this case, and the decision will be rendered at our next regularly scheduled meeting on September 19th.
Thank you.
You guys are going to watch the game. But we're only going to make a decision if Joe has to stay here for the rest of the hearing.
Thanks. Take care.
I'll see you. Other Joe. See you, Joe. Okay. Our next continued case is Z19-22, Lawrence Norton, owner of 636 Dayton Road, Bryn Mawr, PA, DC Polio number 2205-0024900, who seeks to construct a 12-foot by 18-foot deck in the rear yard, requiring a variance from the following provision, 182-208C1D, to further exceed the 40% maximum building coverage permitted on the lot, 182-208C1F1, to encroach into the 7-foot side yard setback on each side and provide a 0-foot aggregate, and section 182-208C1G to encroach into the rear yard setback. Property is zoned R6 and located in the 5th ward. Mr. Norton.
Good evening. I
Go ahead.
thank you for your time again. There were some questions on some numbers and pictures. I have everything here. 5 copies.
Fantastic. Thank you.
And I can share with Ken.
Thank you.
Mark these.
Do I have to?
Second, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Please dump in a book. Give it back.
Thank you.
Oh, no. Okay, Mr. Norton. Mr. Malone just took your exhibits. Arlene, our court reporter, marked them, and now you need to identify what each is by number, just for the record, so.
Mr. Norton, I'm going to show you, first, the 2-page document marked as Exhibit A5. Can you tell the board what this is?
That is a picture of the house at 630 Dayton Road.
A6, again, is a 2-page exhibit. Again, please identify this for the board.
650 Dayton Road.
Same question for Exhibit A7.
658.
Same question for Exhibit A8.
660 Dayton Road.
A9 is a Google map picture. What does that depict?
That's a aerial shot of my side of the street.
And what does it show?
It shows the even side of Dayton Road from 630 up almost to the end of the street.
Specifically, as it pertains to your application, you're providing
Oh,
to show
Oh,
decks.
I'm showing where my house is in relation to the other homes.
Finally, Exhibit A10, what is this?
That is the architectural drawings for the proposed deck.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Six. This is seven. Right. Okay. Go ahead, Larry.
Okay. Starting with my drawings, there was questions on some of the numbers. If you look at the top right-hand corner, the back view of the house, there, the deck heights,
On this,
I'm sorry, yes.
so this is.
Top right-hand corner, the back
A10.
view,
So your exhibit number, this is
A10.
exhibit A10.
Yes, A10, yes, I'm sorry. Exhibit A10, top right corner, the back view of the house. Deck heights on the left side, 4 foot 3 inches, and on the right side, 4 foot 10 inches. The other question, in the center of the same exhibit, distances from the rear property line. And again, looking at the drawing the left side, from the left rear corner of the deck to the property line, 8 foot 3 inches. And from the right rear corner of the deck to the property line, 9 feet even.
Thank you. You provided exactly what we asked for.
Okay.
Questions? Ken?
Yeah, while you were out with your camera, did you have an opportunity to speak to any of your neighbors?
Yes.
And how did they react to your proposed plan?
Favorable.
And this is on
Positive.
the adjoining neighbor?
Adjoining neighbor, left, yeah, one side is favorable, the other side I haven't talked to. I don't see him that much, but I don't feel they'd have a problem with it. And I've talked to 632, 650, and then across the street, not exactly relevant, but across the street at 637, 635 specifically, and I know there's some other ones, 660 was another one, one of the pictures, 660, I talked to them.
And across the street was in the front of the house? Across the street?
Yeah, opposite side of the street, yes.
About behind you?
There is no one behind me, I'm on the polo field.
Oh, okay. That's all I have.
Bill?
Thank you again for the pictures. Just to make sure that we sort of see where the relative location of these photos are, because they're useful photos and they do provide some good perspective. On A9, which is your Google overview,
Yeah.
Google Map overview, I think, will you correct me if I'm wrong, but the house to the furthest lower right corner, which is the last house on the row,
Yes,
that is 630?
yes, and that would be Exhibit
The picture
5.
A5, right.
It's got the corner
And
deck
then
on it, yes.
we move over 2 roofs to your house that's
Yes.
marked.
Yes.
And then we move 5 more,
You
let's call
actually-
them white roofs, right? And then there's a
Actually,
black roof?
if you move all the way up to the break,
Yeah,
the,
650 is.
yeah, that's
Is
650.
on your side of the break.
Yes,
Okay? And then then there's 2 homes, and the third home is 658, am I?
Correct.
Reading that area?
Yes.
And then there's another gap, and then 660? So
Correct.
658 and 660 are not adjoining? There's a house in between,
Yes,
even though the numbering would suggest they might
the
be.
numbering's a little,
Okay. So I just want to
Google's
make
not
sure that
perfect.
I was plotting your pictures
Yes.
properly from A5 through 8 onto A9.
yes, I apologize. I tried to do that and I couldn't.
Now, sometimes it's hard from an aerial view that some of these houses that you haven't provided photos for, it's hard to tell if it's like a small deck or if it's just a little bump out
Yes.
on the back. Have you are all of the, between 630 and 660, are these photos of all the decks or did you leave any out?
These are photos, first off, there are numerous decks on the street. There are 8 decks that are approximately the size that I'm looking for.
On the street, meaning the whole run of Dayton? or
On my
from-
side, on
your
this,
side?
on that stretch, on that even side. There's 8 decks that are approximately my side, based on my best judgment. Of those 8, I have 4 pictured here. A couple, the other ones, I didn't, there's a couple that were gated or fenced, and a couple times I went banging on the door, nobody answered, and I didn't want to just let myself on.
Understood. Okay, that was it.
Jessica,
No questions.
Ed?
If I'm following what was happening here, on 650 is right between the property with the break in between the 2 buildings?
Yes,
And that one has a very large deck in the back.
Yes.
Is that larger than what you were trying to build?
if that's, I think it's almost double. That is 25 and a half foot deep, same width, 16 and a half, and it is 7 foot high, approximately, depending on the grade, and I'm looking for 12 foot.
And
For depth.
For depth, I'm sorry, depth, yes. And 12-foot depth, 16-foot wide, and again, between 4'3" and 4'10" high.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get a perspective on.
Yes, understood.
Appreciate that. And now, neither one of your neighbors have decks then?
The 634 has a small deck that is approximately 4 to 6 foot, and 638 has 8 foot.
And you don't feel that your deck sticking out 12 feet is going to interfere with their enjoyment of their property?
638, both occupant, the husband and wife, they're handicapped, they're both blind. So I don't think they'll be concerned with how my deck looks. 634, they are very excited and, again, very positive and have been encouraging in what I've been talking to them about.
And maybe they want one too.
I'm sorry?
Maybe they want a deck too.
They did mention that, yes.
I have no idea.
Anything else? Kenny?
No.
Bill?
No.
Jess?
No.
Okay. Anything else you want to add?
I have no other, if you have no other questions,
Okay. With that, I'll ask if there's anyone present that received certified mail that wishes to testify. Anyone present that received regular mail? Any other residents of Haverford Township? With that, we'll close the record on this case, and a decision will either be rendered this evening. In the event we're not able to reach a decision this evening, a decision will be rendered at our next regularly scheduled meeting on September 19th. That's it.
very good. Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Take 2. I think we should keep going. All right. So, where's Finn? Who's that Finn? Obviously, you guys are next, so presumably you're going to have some exhibits and stuff, so we'll take 2 while you get set up. 2-minute recess. When the red light appears, there we go. All right, our new case this evening is Z19-24, Bricks of Haverford Town LLC, trading as Brick and Brew, owner of 29 to 31 East Eagle Road, Haverford Town, PA, DC folio number 2203-008150 and 2203-008160, who seeks a modification of the relief granted by the zoning hearing board under its decision entered in case Z1826 to allow seasonal rooftop dining in a 793-square-foot portion of the existing roof. The applicant also seeks a variance from the parking space requirements of Section 182707B, or in the alternative, a determination that the applicant's existing and leased parking spaces are sufficient. Property is zoned C3 commercial and located in the 3rd ward. Good evening.
Evening. Good evening.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Finton McHugh. I represent Bricks of Haverford Town LLC, commonly known as Brick and Brew. With me tonight is Mark Dent. He is Brick and Brew's Director of Marketing. He's going to be testifying. Also testifying this evening is our architect, Brian Newswanger. I plan to call the owner of the former business at the property, Oakmont Pub. That's Brendan Goggin. But also on behalf of Brick and Brew, Dominic Rosselli is here tonight. The board will recall about a year ago, there was a application on the same property under Oakmont, and there was some relief granted as to that. And as part of that application, there was a withdrawal during the process, a withdrawal of the rooftop dining proposal. And that withdrawal was made by the attorney for Oakmont, Joe Mattson. He made that withdrawal without prejudice, and the idea was to sever off the rooftop from that application. It was perceived to be the only contentious part of that application. There has since been an appeal that was filed just as to that application, which was, again, you'll recall, it involved the moving into the adjacent premises at the former Kung Fu studio there. But we have revised the plan for the roof deck, and there are a number of improvements. I'll summarize some of them here. There is reduced seating up there. The seating is also designed so as to be a lounge, an emphasis on lounge chairs and couches, so that people are going to be sitting down low, and there's really been an elimination of any standing areas. So it's not going to be a roof deck with televisions, live entertainment, anything like that. This is going to be a roof deck where people are sitting and eating. And obviously, as part of that, you're going to have lower volume, lower nuisance qualities. A couple other points I want to just make an opening is that we're just talking about the roof top of 31 East Eagle. Although the premises at 29 East Eagle is also owned by Bricks of Haverford Town LLC, that's not part of the proposal. The new plan also has some more greening up, I guess, of the rooftop. There's a perimeter of trees that are going to be installed around the perimeter of the roof, and there's other kind of landscaping elements that have been added. There's a couple elements that are important for the neighbors, because I understand that there are neighbors here to oppose us, in particular the apartments across the street. But the evidence, I believe, will be very clear that there is going to be no adverse impacts from this rooftop dining on any of our neighbors, including the people across the street. There is almost, I think it's about a 9-foot parapet wall in front of the Oakmont. Oakmont had it, and this will have it as well. A wall in front of the building that faces the apartments across the street. And we have some very good exhibits to show that not only that parapet and the wall that goes around the Wawa side of the property on Darby Road, that those will help to ameliorate any impacts here. But there's also some mature trees. There's a mature tree between our building and the street, and there are 3 mature trees on the Rimmer apartment property. There's 3 street trees, and they're mature trees. They're during the seasonal dining aspect of from April 1 to October 31, they're going to be they're in leaf. So and we have evidence to show that they're going to completely block out the views. So, and again, this is not a the idea here is it's a lounge type of a feel. It's not a late night crowd. They're going to be they wind down around 10. They close at 11. And this, as you might know from Brick and Brew, this is not a shot and beer type place. This is not a place where you're going to get rowdy people yelling off the rooftops. So it's an asset to the community that we're trying to add here, and we hope that the board will agree. My first witness will be our architect, who is Brian Newswanger.
And good evening, everybody, and I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to identify myself. I'm here representing Edward Rimmer, who's I'm going to be asking to move in as a party. I don't know when you want me to do that.
No, let's do it now. What's your name again?
My name is Daniel Donahue. It's Donohue.
And are you requesting party status?
Yes, I'm requesting party status for Edward Rimmer, who is present.
And because this is a separate application, what's the basis for the party status request?
He owns, I defer to Ed if I'm incorrect, but units 1 through 9, the same side of the street. And he also owns the apartment complex that's unit 34 across the street.
Okay. And Mr. McHugh, any objection?
We have no objection.
Okay. Any discussion, board? Mr. Brimmer is a party.
Thank you.
Who's your first one?
Brian Newswanger, our architect.
Brian, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and the capacity in which you appear, please?
Brian Newswanger, N-E-W-S, W-A-N-G-E-R, Atlantis Architects, and I'm the architect for the project.
And Mr. Newswanger, is your resume included in our exhibit package as Exhibit A2?
Yes, it
Okay. And would you just mind, in 50 words or less, describing your educational and employment background?
We're a multi-faceted architectural firm that do design-build work in the U.S., in India, in Japan, in Saudi Arabia, but primarily in the United States. And we do a wide variety of projects from commercial, residential, restaurants, even have done zoos. Kind of typical of our kind of work, very unique project, and something that we like to see as being an asset to the community.
And have you testified as an expert in architecture in Delaware County?
I have, yes.
I would respectfully submit Mr. Newswanger as an expert in architecture.
Mr. Donahue, any questions?
No, thank you.
Any objection?
No.
Okay. All right. Then if there's no questions or objection from any of the board members, Mr. Newswanger will be accepted as an expert in architecture.
Okay. Mr. Newswanger, have you prepared the site plan, roof level plan, and other plans that we'll be looking at as part of Exhibit A3?
I have.
And were you involved in the prior application that I mentioned in my opening, which involved Oakmont Realty?
We were, yes.
Okay, and did you prepare the plans for that application?
Yes, we did.
Okay, and was Brick and Brew involved in that process?
And to some extent in an advisory capacity. That was prior to the actual purchase of the property.
Okay, and was the rooftop plan different in the prior application?
We had a bit more dining, seating, more standing room, and so the concept was a little bit different in the onset, and it's been fine-tuned as the and it said, to be much more lounge-like seating in its present iteration.
Okay, and I guess referring to the rooftop plan, which is part of Exhibit A3, and the bottom right-hand corners of these exhibits have sheet numbers. This one that is up in front of the board here is sheet number A-1.2. Would you mind explaining with the roof level plan essentially what's being proposed here?
What we're proposing in this area is providing lounge seating for diners in low couches, small coffee tables, primarily in the area here to the north and along the edge along Darby Road. There is a small bar with a trellis screening it in the middle of the roof area, and it's served by a public stair at the rear of the building, and then a stair that's providing service from the kitchen below that's shown here in this location on the plan. The idea was to create an outdoor room, the sense of an outdoor space. People can enjoy being outside, during at least 60% of the year and enjoy the outdoor weather. So the thought was to provide landscaping to soften it and also to help kind of create this sense of an outdoor room so that there's not only a sense of enclosure that results from the existing parapet and structure, but we're also utilizing that landscaping as a way to help soften and create privacy within small kind of conversation areas that we're creating in the dining space as well.
Okay, and how many square feet are we talking about on the rooftop?
Glasses. I'm sorry. It is actually,
Mr. McHugh, the exhibit to which he was referring, is that your, what is it? Is that A3?
A3,
A
yes.
larger version of A3?
That's correct. And the sheet number on the, because A3 has several sheets, and that one that he was referring to, which has the large blown up of the rooftop diagram, is A1.2.
getting back to your question of the square footage, it's 793 square feet of dining area.
But now you're referring to a different exhibit. Would you
They were
identify that?
referring to the SP 1.0 plan, which shows the overall site plan in its context. It's a replication of the rooftop, but gives you the square footage data and other information related to that in context.
Is that page 1 of Exhibit A3?
I believe that's right. It's labeled as SP 1.0, so that would be the first sheet in that exhibit.
Okay.
And Mr. Newswanger, would you describe how did you decide where to put the trees on the rooftop?
As I said, it seemed important to us to soften the edge and screen the area towards Darby Road and help to provide additional screening on Eagle as well. Because I think in other exhibits you can see the level of screening that you're able to achieve from the old bank's parapet that faced Eagle Road. We're providing additional screening in the areas where it drops to it at the corners to help, again, as I say, provide more privacy, not only from the standpoint of the dining space, but also for people seeing it from outside the building.
Okay, and do you have elevation plans?
We did. This would be typical of the exterior elevations of the building facing Eagle Road. This is sheet number A2.0.
So your Exhibit A3, A2.0.
Correct.
It's labeled that in the lower right-hand corner.
Yes. So what this is showing you is what the elevation on Eagle Road will look like, preserving the existing parapet, as I said, and providing this additional tree screening that you would see kind of peeking up over the edge of the corners, and then bringing that same kind of screening alongside, along Darby Road as well, in the area facing the Wawa. Obviously there it's not as important because it's facing a commercial street, but nonetheless, it still provides a softening effect to the overall view of this, and again, as I said before, provides this kind of sense of enclosure and scale, smaller scale to the diners.
And at the bottom part of this elevation plan, which again is A 2.0, and the sheet is marked as, there's a east elevation from Darby Road, and so that's looking from the Wawa, is that? Okay. So the parapet that's higher in the front of the building comes down somewhat, doesn't it?
Right, as it wraps the corner from Eagle Road, the old facade was much taller. It comes around much like a western front on a commercial building, and then drops lower as it comes around along Darby Road.
Okay, and where it is lower, and you can see for scale purposes, that you put some people,
Right, so you get a sense of how high that existing parapet is, and we are actually providing an additional railing for safety.
okay. There are people shown standing here. Is that, would they be standing in an area where there's going to be standing room, or?
No, they happen to be standing along the edge in the area that we're showing, where it's primarily still seated dining, but for illustration purposes, we wanted to give you a sense of scale. If someone were to stand up, walk back, walk between their table and the men's room or whatever, this is basically the extent of what you would see, the amount of activity you'd see on the roof.
Okay, and is there any open area up there where people can just kind of congregate and?
It's not intended for that, no.
Okay. And in terms of, do you have any plans that show the dimensions of the parapet and some of the details?
Yes, we do. That would be on sheet A 2.3, part of the same exhibit. It shows what the actual dimensions are of the parapet along Darby Road, and then what the parapet steps up to along Eagle Road, where it goes from being just under 3'2" along Darby Road. It comes up to 5'7", 7'6", and at its peak, almost 9 feet as it faces Eagle. So that's what these dimensions are showing here. And again, just for scale, we're showing a person standing in that space to give a sense of how much screening is going to be provided there by the architecture.
Okay, and how about, so on the bottom part of this elevation detail plan, which has the sheet number A 2.3 in the bottom right-hand corner, I think you mentioned that the parapet in the front of the building was 8 foot 9 1/4. Does that look right?
That's right, and it drops to 7'6" at the end of the arch, so that's the range. So even a person standing, as you'll see in other exhibits, is not even visible from the street.
Okay, and that's facing the apartments across the street?
Correct, that's facing Eagle Road.
Okay, and the 7'6" area, that wraps around the corner, kind of enveloping that corner of the building?
It drops to being just around 6 feet as it wraps the corner.
Okay,
And again, that's why we felt it important to bring the landscaping around, and planters are placed the way they are to make up for some consultant.
okay, and the trees are taller than the parapet, are they?
Yes.
Okay. There are some, is there another exhibit that shows where some dimensions and what things would look like from across the street?
Right. That would be a sheet that we've labeled A2.4. What this is actually a section cut through Eagle Road showing our proposed location and the existing buildings across the street, across Eagle Road, so that we could actually look at and analyze what's the actual visual sight line from someone who might be inside the apartment building across the street. But what we're indicating there is that on the 3rd floor of that building, with this sight line, you can see what's being cut off of their view. Between the mature trees that exist there and the actual geometry of the architecture, there's a very minimal visual impact.
And will there be any, for instance, a person standing on the top floor of the apartment building, will they be able to look out and see any people across the street?
If they get up and walk across the deck, they might be able to see their head. That might be about it.
Okay,
But
so,
for the most part, in their normal operations, sitting down, dining, no. I mean, the feel of this dining area is really akin to Buckley's Tavern on Route 52, if you've been to Chad's Ford. It's another location similar to this. It's a kind of family restaurant. It's in a very high-end residential area and has kind of a community draw. I mean, the strong point to that is that it actually brings families out and they dine on the roof. Quiet, like I say, the community uses it. And I think that's the same kind of concept we have here. Again, similar to other ones like Stratus, Fifth and Chestnut in Philadelphia. Lounge seating, it's not a shot bar, you know, it's really for dining, socializing. So the level of activity is lower, it's more high-end, more family-oriented in essence. So that's really the concept that we're looking at here.
Okay. There are some photographs and some Google Street images that are in Exhibit A4. Do you have that?
Yes.
And for the board's benefit, there are page numbers in the bottom right-hand corner that we can follow along with. But Brian, would you mind just kind of walking us through the first few pages of Exhibit A4 and explaining what they show?
Sure. These are photographs taken from the intersection, near the intersection of Eagle and Darby Road, looking southwest towards our building, towards 31 East Eagle, from street level, would be the first view. Second view is standing in Darby Road, looking back at the old SEPTA bus stop, basically looking almost due west at our building, and you can see the intersection to the far right of the photograph of Darby and Eagle Road.
And is that,
So the area, you really get a sense of the level of maturity of the trees. So if you can imagine, behind the trees that we see here along Darby Road, you'd be really hard pressed during normal seasonal operation to see anyone up there. And even with regard to what we envision as being the lighting in the space, it's a very low light, LED lighting, almost candlelit. So it's not high levels of light, because it would be really counter to our concept for dining. It's going to be a more subdued, kind of soothing lighting level.
and the page 3, what does that show?
Page 3 is now a view standing in front of our building, looking north across the street towards 34 East Eagle, which is the apartment building. And again, you get a sense again of the level of mature trees. You're standing basically dead center on our building, looking across. So with the existing trees, there's most view is blocked at that point.
Okay, and then how about pages 4 and 5?
Page 4 is on side street. That's looking at the eastern face of the apartment building.
And so that's Hathaway Lane, but kind of the extension of where East Darby Road comes in at the Wawa intersection?
That is correct. And then page 5 is actually Hearst Terrace, which would be the western elevation of the apartment building, showing its off-street parking.
Okay, and while we're on page 5, is the shape of the Rimmer building kind of like a U shape?
Right, it's a U shape around a parking courtyard.
Okay, and would most of the apartments face the subject property where Brick and Brew is intending to go, or in other directions?
No, primarily the living spaces of all the apartments are facing into the courtyard or towards the other streets. So really probably only about 20% of the apartments are facing Eagle.
Okay.
Because that's also the main lobby. So there's fewer apartments facing that facade.
And then just going back to page 4, many of the units also face the Wawa and other uses in the area?
Correct.
And then what's shown on page 5?
Page 5.
I'm sorry, is there, page 6, sorry.
Page 6. That's actually a photograph of our existing building with one of our workmen actually up on the roof waving his hand.
So the little hand in the middle is a real
Right.
person?
And he's actually 6 feet tall, so that's about all we're seeing of him is his hand waving to us.
Okay, how about page 7?
Page 7, now we're actually across the street, taking the same picture, and you can see the very small kind of dot there is still waving.
And how about page 8?
Page 8, we are actually closer to the intersection and looking back at him standing at the corner, so that's that area where the parapet drops a bit. So you can see that he's just about up to, upper chest height with the parapet. And again, that's the area where we're putting landscaping as well. But again, these were done to show scale and show what the real impact is of cutting someone off on that roof. And then the next page is standing on Darby Road, looking west, so you can actually see that it drops, the parapet drops at that point. So you're seeing basically from about waist height up. And as I said, for safety purposes, once that's occupied, we have a railing that actually has to come up to 42 inches. So we'll have a railing that'll be hiding a bit more of him at that point, to prevent somebody from hitting a spill over the side.
Right, and I guess you testified earlier about not having a standing area. Does that include around the edges? Is there any spots where?
Well, the seating is clustered along the edges, so it prevents people from standing at the edge. We don't want to encourage that for a lot of reasons. I mean, obviously, people holding drinks don't want them spilled to the side, but the idea is that that's the areas where we've designed our seating. We're not encouraging people to stand at the perimeter. The only location where we have any standing is back in the back portion of the roof where the bars located.
And let's say somebody decides they want to stand there anyway and puts a drink on the side wall. I guess they wouldn't be able to put it in the front on the parapet unless they were very tall. But if they were going to put it on the side wall and it were to fall over, where would it fall?
All it would do is fall under our roof. But I've designed enough stadiums and event spaces, I have ways to prevent that. People can't put drinks on those edges.
Okay.
What are the ways?
Drink rail, there's actually a ledge that if you do put a drink there, there's actually a stop to it. Or, as I said, with the railing that we're going to be putting there, it's not going to encourage that at all. It's going to simply be a railing. It'll be impossible to balance a drink on. It'll literally be a round railing. So we're not encouraging that in any way, shape, or form because, again, we're encouraging people to sit down.
And if somebody wasn't realizing that there's just a railing there and drops the drink off, is it going to fall onto the street, or what would it fall onto?
It will fall onto our property, our roof, and into our gutter.
Okay, and is that the same on the other side? On the
west side?
the interior, yes.
Well, that's the adjacent building, so if anything were to fall there, it's only going to fall onto our roof.
Okay. Is there any, as part of this proposal, is there any live entertainment, television, anything like that?
No, we're not proposing to do any of that.
Okay. And is it the applicant's intention to otherwise comply with the township zoning regulations applicable to outdoor dining?
Yes.
Right. Turning to the issue of parking, we've requested a variance from section 182-707B of the zoning ordinance requiring one parking space for every 100 square feet of floor area devoted to patron use. Can you explain the patron use square footage of the restaurant and then the additional patron use square footage of the proposed rooftop?
What we've done is the calculation, as I said earlier, the 793 square feet that's devoted to patron usage here by ordinance would require 8 parking spaces. And prior to that, we provided additional other parking, 7 spaces on our property and 3 directly in front of the building. And we have arrangements made with several other properties immediately adjacent for additional parking through leases.
Okay, and is it correct that from the prior application, the first floor is 1,735 square feet?
Yes, that's true.
Okay, so we would need 18 spaces for the first floor, correct?
Yes.
And then we would be adding another, with our additional 793 square feet, we'd be adding the need for an additional 8 spaces, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so the total there would be 26 spaces total if we were to get the relief this evening.
Correct.
Okay, and then you mentioned that we have 7 spaces on site?
Correct.
And you're familiar with the Bryn Mawr Trust lease of their spaces?
Yes.
And is that 26 spaces?
There's 26 additional spaces available there.
Okay, so the 33 total spaces that we are providing for the Brick and Brew here is actually 7 spaces more than the amounts that is required under the zoning ordinance?
Correct.
Okay. And would Brick and Brew be able to do anything in terms of creating additional parking without demolishing existing structures?
No.
And is that basically common to the other properties along this strip and just generally in that district?
It's pretty typical, yes, exactly.
And many of the other ones don't have any parking?
Have no parking whatsoever, correct.
Okay. And in terms of,
Most have no parking.
and was this, were the issues that we've been talking about, were any of those, was this existing when Brick and Brew acquired the property?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that the proposal here for the rooftop dining, that this is going to alter the essential character of the neighborhood or the district in which it's located?
I'm going to object to that. I don't think there's been any basis for that expert opinion.
Well, I think he's testified that it's not going to have an impact on the residential properties across the street, and it's his opinion as to whether it's going to have an impact on the neighboring properties.
All right, I'd suggest the board overrule the objection, but give the testimony its proper weight.
That's what we'll do.
Okay, and did you answer the question?
I don't feel that it's going to detrimentally affect the neighborhood. In fact, the intent is to actually enhance the commercial experience in the neighborhood.
Okay, and do you think this is a reasonable use of the property, what's being proposed?
Yes.
Okay. I have nothing further for this witness.
Thank you. Good evening, sir. How you doing? So you testified that this is not a shot and beer place or shot place, is that what you said?
Correct.
Now, there is a rooftop bar proposed, is that right?
Correct.
And is that bar something that patrons will have access to go up
Yes.
and order their own drink?
Yes.
So your understanding is that the people sitting in these seats will get up, go to the bar, order drinks, and sit back down?
Well, the way that it typically works is you have some patrons who will sit at the bar, but for the most part, people sitting at the lounge seats are going to be served by servers. So their drinks, their food, everything is brought to them.
Okay, and people
So
could
the
all,
only activity you're going to see is basically here.
people going up to the bar?
Correct.
People could also stand by the bar, is that right?
Yeah, if we could just,
Sure.
I know you're anticipating the question, but please let counsel finish the question first, because it just makes the stenographer job so difficult if we talk over each other.
Understood.
All right, sir, people also have the option of standing by the bar, is that right?
To an extent, but again, the bar is purposely small. So it's not intended that more than 4, maybe 5 people at the most could potentially stand there behind a seat.
All right, and you mentioned shots. Will the bar serve hard liquor?
They will serve hard liquor.
Will they serve it in shot form?
I would assume they could.
All right, so that's just some,
When-
what you're really telling the panel is you don't want it to be a shot and bar place, but you don't really have control over the patrons, do you?
Well, I think operationally, Brick and Brew can talk to that, but that's not the kind of place this is. When I say a shot bar, it's more a level of quality of the patrons that they're expecting here and the way they operate. It's not some place where somebody's gonna come, certainly you can't control it, but on the other hand, Brick and Brew's reputation, they don't let it get out of hand.
All right. Sir,
Okay?
you testified earlier, the way I understood it, was that nobody could put a drink on the front wall, the wall facing Eagle Road.
Correct.
And you would agree with me that the picture that you used as an exhibit showed a gentleman 6 feet tall with his hand above that wall at its highest point.
Right.
Wouldn't you agree with me that he could put a drink on that wall?
If if you climbed over someone sitting in one of the sofas or lounges or over one of the trees.
Or walk between them.
If you look at the plan, it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard to do, and that's why we built the planner and moved everything back from that wall,
Right,
to
but,
prevent that.
sir, you testified that there's going to be 793 feet of dining area. What do you mean by dining area? Does that include the bar?
That includes the bar.
Does that include the bathroom?
No,
Does it include the areas with the trees?
it does not.
Okay, so you've excluded that from the calculation. All right. And this is the bar, if I understand the plans correctly, that's going to be over 29 or 31?
29 or 31 what?
The street address, which of the two
Oh, I'm
buildings?
sorry. It'll be over 31, yes, over 31 East Eagle.
Okay.
Everything on the roof for the dining is right here, over 31 East Eagle. The only thing that's above, coming over the roof of our adjacent property, is the bathroom and the service stair coming up from the kitchen, back of house storage. So there's no kitchen space there.
And you, as you indicated, there'll be lighting outside.
Correct.
You don't have a plan for any kind of noise barrier, to my understanding.
No noise barrier, but again, we don't anticipate the level of noise requiring that. Between the soft seating that we're providing, the trees, and even the finishes that we're putting up there, there should be more than adequate absorption of sound.
Sir, right now, I understand you did the plans before the last hearing that was done for the variance. What is the total amount of seating without this rooftop deck?
I have to refresh my memory on that one. We are at 55 to 70 inside the dining room.
What was that?
I think it's 55 to 70. I would have to double check my calculation.
In total, without the rooftop deck?
Without the rooftop deck.
If I indicated, I thought it was 137 seats, is that incorrect?
No, we're not that, no, we don't have that many seats inside, no. Got-
Can I just ask that, I would just like to make sure that we're clear on this number. There's seating in 31 and there's seating in 29. So
Yes.
when we figure out this question, or
Thank
however
you.
you propose it, can you please clarify about seating on the first floor of whether it's one building or the other or combined?
Right, yes, thank you. What I'm asking is both buildings combined,
Both buildings combined.
everything except the rooftop.
Give me a moment. Or 80 people inside the dining room.
In both buildings combined?
Correct.
Okay. Do you know what the seating was before the place was purchased with the Oakmont Pub?
I don't know what the seating was.
Would you agree with me that it has increased?
Yes,
Okay, even without the rooftop deck?
it has.
And sir, did you do the plans for the current Brick and Brew in Havertown?
No, I did not.
All right. And you said you made some kind of an assessment based on the amount of parking, is that right?
Right.
And you indicated that you've had contact with the bank, PNC Bank, is it?
Brick and Brew has made arrangements with the bank and arranged leases for those spaces.
Okay. And do any of your exhibits show the bank? Any of the photographs that you presented to the board?
Don't believe they do.
And that's because it's across the street and down the road, is that right?
Yeah, just down the road, it's
Okay.
within walking distance.
Do you know what the business hours of Brick and Brew are going to be?
That, I don't know, and I would defer to Brick and Brew's people on that one.
Okay, they're going to testify, I guess?
Yes.
Okay. All right. You indicated that the best comparison to this place is another bar on Route 52 in Chadsford.
Yes,
Do they have a parking lot?
they do.
And that's an independent parking lot, right?
It's a
It's not a
private-
bank across the street.
Right, it's part of their property, but if you've ever been there, there's also at least 20 cars parked on the street.
And you indicated this place in Chadsford, and that's because, yeah, there's no comparables in this immediate neighborhood, are there?
I don't think that's completely correct. I think there are a couple of others that are doing similar things.
Can you name another rooftop bar?
In the immediate area, I can't personally.
Okay,
I can't.
all right. And there's no rooftop bar at the current Brick and Brew, right?
No, there's not.
If you
There
just
is,
have a
however,
moment, I'm sorry.
There is an outdoor seating area.
And with this facility, you talked about, I believe it was 80 seats without the rooftop deck. Are you including the outside seating with that?
No,
All right, and in fact, there is already outdoor seating,
correct.
and that's along the sidewalk, right?
Right, but that again is also seasonal.
Seasonal, and how many seats are there?
There's 30 seats there.
All right, and can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the board, has construction started on that?
Demolition has started and some of the internal structure is underway.
All right,
Stabilize
and
the building.
you're aware that it's still under appeal, right?
I would object, I mean, that's, we're here for the rooftop,
I don't,
separate application.
I'll ask the advice of our solicitor, but I think that it exceeds the scope of the direct, and
I'd sustain the objection. I don't think it's relevant to this
I just have one
application.
moment.
sure.
I think I'm going to ask the business to knock it out. Just to, okay. And sir, you gave an opinion as to how it would affect the neighborhood, all right? Gave an opinion as to how this rooftop deck would affect the neighborhood. Right. Do you live in the neighborhood?
I do not.
Do you live in Haverford Township?
I do not.
Okay. Have you ever spent time at 11, 12 o'clock at night or early morning in Haverford Township? How familiar are you with living in this specific community?
With the kind of projects I've done, I'm very familiar with small towns and the attempt to revitalize pedestrian traffic and businesses in the towns.
But you can't fairly say you know what it's like to live there.
He was answering the question, and you interrupted.
Sure, let him finish first.
Finish your answer.
I'm sorry?
You were finishing your answer.
I just was saying that to the best of my knowledge, Brick and Brew is basically closed by 10:30, 11 o'clock. So I don't know that,
Well, if I told you it's open till 1 o'clock at night, does that change your opinion? Or 1 o'clock in the morning?
I don't think that's the operational intent here.
Yeah, we could address that through Mark Dent's testimony, but we're.
I think we could stipulate to it, can't we?
Yeah, because the ordinance actually requires all outdoor dining to be shut down completely by 11. They're going to start shutting it down before then.
But can we stipulate that Brick and Brew is open until 1 a.m.?
Am I sworn in?
No, I mean,
Let's-
if you don't know, I'll just ask him.
We'll
Okay.
we'll wait till there's another witness who can address that.
Right, I think we can, if there's any stipulations needed, why don't we save them till the end of testimony, and then we can clear up any things. I have a couple questions for Mr. McHugh concerning his opening statement, but, we'll clarify some of these issues.
And sir, have you had experience dealing with bars in the past, designing these types of things? And it's feasible to run a bar without a rooftop deck, isn't it?
Depends on the location. It depends on the competition. It depends on your goal.
Is it possible to run this Brick and Brew
I don't think
without a
I
rooftop
think
deck?
I can speak to that. I really can't because I don't know the specific demographics of the operations here. I know in Center City, Philadelphia, and a lot of other cities where
I'm
I've
gonna,
designed bars.
I don't think it really matters what happens in Center City, Philadelphia, but you don't have an opinion.
I think it goes to the expectations of diners that the Brick and Brew is targeting as their audience. They're looking for an amenity like this in order to be an attraction.
I'm gonna object and
What-
move to
What
strike.
was your question again? Is it possible?
I'm asking him if he has any reason to believe it can't be run as a profitable business without a rooftop deck.
I'm going to object to that question with the profit because that's out of the scope of direct certainly, and certainly what an architect would be. He is not examine the budgets or profits of, projected profits of this business.
If he doesn't
I
know.
thought the question was, is it possible to run the business without a rooftop deck? I didn't.
Well,
the
essentially, that's what it
profitable
was,
part.
yes.
I think he essentially answered the question, so we can move
Okay.
forward.
All right. That's all I have. Thank you.
One follow-up question, Brian, on the issue about the existing outdoor seating. So the potential ill effects I anticipate being raised already exist at the property with outdoor seating. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's it. That's all I have for this witness.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Questions? Kenny?
Yeah, what's the maximum capacity rooftop
Maximum capacity on the roof?
patrons?
What I'm estimating based on the seating that they designed is about 34.
And that's standing and sitting? Or-
Yes.
Anything else, Kenny?
I'm trying to get a hand. So you're gonna have couches against the wall?
Well, what it is actually, there's sofas and low tables in arrangements, low chairs and sofas in basically 4 kind of conversation kits, if you want to call it that. Provide people like 4 to 5 people, maybe 6 people to be able to sit with each other around the table.
And the bar, and that's a full-serve bar?
Yes,
And the menu, is that full-serve too? Whatever you can get downstairs, you can get upstairs?
I think pretty much that's the intention, yes.
All I have right now.
Jessica?
What will the height of the trees be at the time of installation?
When we plant them, we want to plant at least 10 to 12-foot trees.
And you mentioned that you're going to be putting a railing up where the parapet is only about 3 foot 1 inches. It's not shown on the elevations. What will that look like?
What we're proposing, so right now, it'll be a metal railing similar to what we're showing in this elevation.
Which page?
This A2.0, it would be a more historic-looking railing that would be placed up here above the parapet, basically bringing that up in height to the 42-inch guardrail height.
Okay.
Can I, on that same question, Jessica, can I just, so it's a solid wall that
It's
you're,
not solid, it'll be pickets, but it's, they're spaced very closely, so it's not wide open.
okay, and then it's with literally a rounded bar at the top, or
Right.
just a rounded,
It'll have a handrail on it, so that if somebody were adjacent to it, they could grab it, but it's not to encourage people to put drinks on it or stand. Code, it has to be a guardrail with it, adhering to the requirements of the handrail.
No further questions.
Bill?
So I just wanted to follow up a little bit on some of the things that were discussed already. We heard that really there was no standing patrons being designed for this space. Is that right? But there is a full-service bar, and the pictures that we've seen don't show any bar seating. So,
Well, there are bar stools.
or there are, because I'm sorry. So how many bar stools are you counting?
12.
12 bar
12
stools.
bar stools.
So by your estimation, then, the bar stools are 1/3, or well, 12, and then there's 22 seats. And
22 to 24, right?
are the people at the bar that can eat at the bar?
They can if they want.
And other than people who may be eating at the bar, is the other food service waitress or waiter service at the tables?
All the other service is by waiter and waitress to the seating.
And how would you be able to prevent people from coming upstairs and just standing at the bar behind the patrons who are seated at the bar?
We can't limit it entirely, but we've purposely designed it in such a way that it's not comfortable. We've not made it generous enough that it really encourages that. I think at the most, we might see 3 to 4 people might come up and stand behind them, or you might have a couple at the bar waiting to get a seat from one of the lounge seats, waiting for one to open up. But we don't anticipate seeing like a happy hour crowd where you've got stacked 3 deep at the bar.
And so,
It's what we anticipate.
so if the seating is waitress service, so you'd have to wait downstairs to get a table, and then a hostess would bring you to a table? Or if you were standing by the bar, could you just assume a table that was being vacated?
I don't think so. I think it's all by maitre d' and service.
There was testimony that, in addition to no standing, which sounds like there might be a little bit, but,
But that's why we purposely have pulled it back
I understand.
undercover.
No TVs and no live entertainment. But music, presumably there'll be some music played over the radio.
I don't know that that's really anticipated at all. I don't know about music. But again,
let me ask a question. Is there any plans to have different sound than is in the current Brick and Brew in town?
that I don't know.
I'm just trying to figure out what the benchmark might be that might be different. So the plan is that I heard testimony that you wind down around 10 and then close at 11, and close at 11 is because it's outdoor seating. Wind down means you no longer seat people, is that the plan?
We start stopping seating people up there 10, 15.
Are there other ways that you manage that 11 o'clock cutoff?
I'm sure that there are, and again, I'll let Brick and Brew speak to the operations.
So if you stop if the plan, well, maybe we'll talk about this with the next witness then. Let's see. On page A 2.0, probably just, I think to clarify for the record, in the elevation from Eagle Road, you show the planting on the left side, and what I would imagine is a pergola roof over the bar at quite some distance. It's not adjacent to the parapet, right?
But what will ultimately happen is we'll have the plantings there. I think
Yeah, I was going to say,
the plan kind of supersedes my elevation, and I missed a tree.
okay, so
But
the
like I
plan,
said before, I really feel strongly that we want to encourage people not to get to those corners or discourage them from getting to the corners.
understand. So the depiction of the planting on A 1.2 is the actual plan rather than the depiction on the Eagle Road elevation on A 2.0?
Yes,
Each of which are part of A3.
Correct.
Right. On page A 1.2, the versions that we've been given are so faint that it's very hard to identify the seating versus just the floor plan, right? It's almost impossible for us to see that on these copies.
Okay.
So you've said that there are essentially 4 lounge areas, and these are lounge areas that I'm asking a question, are depicted by essentially a sofa, 2 armchairs around a coffee table?
correct.
And then there's essentially 4 of those, but really there's not
4
the
and-
same amount of seating in each one because lounge chairs, right?
Right. It's not 100% replicated
Right.
in each case, correct.
So you're figuring three people per sofa, two people per sofa,
2
one
to
per lounge
3
chair?
plus the armchairs. So you're talking about groups of about 5 to 6 at the most.
Okay, of which there's 4 of them.
Yes,
So that's 20.
right.
And then adjacent to the bar are bar height, is that a booth or, no, to
Oh,
the
no,
left?
these are more sofas. So
And how many are there?
There's 4 sofas. They're
4
not,
sofas.
they're not as large as these, as
So-
a coffee table. So you
so-
get another 4 and 4, another 8.
So that's approximately 32 people, plus 12 bar stools. So we're talking 44 seats?
Yeah, well, we do lose a couple here, so it's really about 40.
Okay, but I think the testimony had been that there would be 34 seats max. I think the question had been, what's the maximum seating
Yeah.
that Mr. Richardson asked? But based on this depiction, which would form the notes of testimony, we're talking about seating that's somewhere 40 or maybe a little bit north, rather than 34, just to clarify the record.
Yes, okay, yes.
I have no other questions. Ed?
Yes. And do you know if there was any other additional parking provided in this application that wasn't presented previously to us?
I don't know that.
I do know that there was, as part of the prior application, as well as in our materials that I'll get to with Mr. Dent, there is, it's not leased parking. We don't have a right to it. But the chapel has given us a letter, I think it's Exhibit A7 or 8, and it basically says that except for what are some very limited hours, very generous of the chapel to allow community parking in their areas. And of course, there's the,
And that wasn't presented previously?
was
Was there anything presented that wasn't presented for our decision originally?
no, there's nothing new in terms of parking.
Okay. Do you know if you considered valet parking?
Sure, that's something to consider, potentially, but
Is there, have you looked at it, whether there's any feasibility to that type of arrangement?
again, that's operational and,
Okay.
yeah,
Do you know if this application conflicts with anything that was presented in the first application?
I don't believe it does, no.
There's, like, you have outdoor dining that you're not supposed to enclose. Does the stairway enclose part of that dining area?
No, no.
There's no wall around the,
No, we're keeping that open. It's an open railing.
so there's not going to be a wall.
No.
You're going to have open,
You mean,
it looks like open, closed wall to me.
you mean the existing outdoor dining along?
No, along the one side, the front of the building, on the front, right there.
Okay.
Is that going to be over enclosed with a wall?
No. It's wide open as it is now, and all that we'll see is just a railing similar to this would be the elevation.
I don't see that. Where's the drawing you have with the front of the proposal? Isn't it the steel plates over here on the side?
This is the side facing Darby Road, so this is the old vault and the staircase that's going up to service.
And that staircase is not enclosed?
That staircase isn't.
Is it is it on the side of the building, or is it the side?
It's in the back of the building, so it's in plan. It's the enclosure of this. This is the existing outdoor dining under the canvas roof. This is the vault here, so all we're doing is enclosing that stair for convenience.
So there'll be
Not
no,
enclosing the dining area.
I got you. So you do have an existing outdoor dining, and that was presented originally, so you're.
That's been in existence since the oak line.
Right. The other issue, didn't our prior, did you enter that into your information here tonight, the prior?
The prior decision is part of the,
Right.
yes.
And what part of that decision that you would not have access to the roof?
That's correct, and that's what we're asking for a modification from this evening.
So it does conflict with the existing.
Yes, I mean, the rest of the plan, first floor, because that prior plan, when even though it shows up in the decision saying you may not have access to the roof, that was actually the rooftop, a different design, but a rooftop plan was included as part of the application, and the attorney for Oakmont withdrew it without prejudice, so that, and the idea, and Mr. Dent can testify about this, was that was always part of the plan, is to come back later for the roof. But there's no new changes, but because it showed up in the decision, yes, we are requesting a modification of that part of the decision.
So can you explain your definition? I'm sorry, I'm asking you, but your term without prejudice, what does that mean?
The attorney at that time for Oakmont was reserving the right to come back and ask for the rooftop later, because it appeared that was the contentious item with the neighbor across the street. They wanted to bifurcate the matter and just go in for the karate studio, the additional space at 29 East Eagle Road at that time, but, and kind of save it for another day, which is today.
Okay, in my mind, when you took it off the record, and it affected the way we were making our decisions, but go ahead. Oh, I thought you were under pressure, but, no, so that was an issue. So you're, I don't remember hearing, but, so you don't remember.
And I can clarify, there's, I think it's exhibit A6, and that was Joe Mattson, the attorney for Oakmont, who did that presentation. He issued a letter saying that they were withdrawing the application without prejudice. And I think that also shows up on, yeah, it does actually, in fact, I'm remembering it, it shows up on the transcript for the prior hearing that he said he was.
There's a copy of the letter in the file.
Correct.
Other questions?
I'm not sure if these are appropriately addressed to you. What are the current hours of operation of Brick and Brew at the current location?
Current location,
You want me to answer this question? Do I need to?
Is he going to testify?
He is going to testify.
I'll hold the
it'll be
question.
better if he answers that one.
Is there any covering proposed for the roof? Any awning or anything of that sort?
The only thing we've proposed is the open trellis over the barn. It's the shield. An open trellis over the barn. Be a very small portion of the space that would actually have an implied enclosure over it.
So if it rained while people were up there,
They'd have to,
and this may be more of an operational question as well. Do you know what time they stopped serving food at the current location? Okay,
again, I don't.
okay. That's all I have. Any other questions?
No.
Bill?
One other question. Is there any architectural or design plans for heating or chilling elements in the rooftop area?
I think in the fall, there may be some heaters, some portable heaters that might be utilized just so if it gets cool on an October night that they could use it. But they would be the pedestal type. Wouldn't be an obtrusive, big, hard, opaque element.
Yeah, and so you had said that there was seasonal use, and I think you had defined that as April 1 to October 1?
Probably
Is that-
through October, but as
Through-
you know,
through October.
it can get cool in October, so.
Yep,
you
and
might-
it can be cold in April. So it's seasonal, but it may be a little bit, there may be some management of the temperature.
Jess, anything else?
No.
Ed?
No.
All right. So, who are you going to call next?
Mark Dent. This guy.
We're going to take a 2-minute recess.
Property attracted Brick and Brew.
Look, I mean, when the property came up for sale, no doubt that we wanted an opportunity to continue the legacy that, Brendan and his team had established. It's a crown jewel within the community, and to have an opportunity to relocate at that spot and take that to another level was something that we were excited about, are excited about.
And obviously, the proposal this evening is for the rooftop. Can you explain the concept that you want to build with the rooftop?
Well, the concept is, again, we have to differentiate ourselves in a very competitive market, right? The profit margins in the restaurant industry are not, favorable, 1% to 5% at best.
That's on food, correct?
Correct.
Not alcohol.
Not alcohol. Again, when you look at our history of operating, 6 years in Havertown, we've certainly separated ourselves from the crowd, and we need to continue to put that best step forward. So the rooftop, quite frankly, gives us the highest probability of success over the long term.
Okay, and you were here earlier when our architect, Brian Newswanger, was testifying. Did you agree with what he said?
I thought his expert testimony was spot on.
Okay, and is this, did you kind of give him instructions in working with him to create that kind of low-key lounge feel that he was describing?
We did, yes.
Okay, and one of the questions that came up that I don't know if it was answered, but are you proposing to have any kind of speakers?
Now, we're going to stay, again, with our 6 years of operating history in Havertown, we stay within code that is set.
Okay, and part of that code requires that anything outdoor would be seasonal, so the proposal here is only for April 1 to October 31?
Correct, that is the season, that's the dates we're allowed to operate, yes.
Okay, and I guess take us through like a typical day. Is it, what would the typical capacity, and if you need to talk about different days of the week and different times of day, what do you expect the capacity up here to look like?
I would say we're at max capacity, probably, just Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Okay, so a lot of the hours of the day, there might be nobody up there.
Absolutely. I mean, again, the reality of the business is, we're not going to be at capacity, all operating hours. The reality is that most people will go out and, either take their family out and get dinner. Fridays and Saturdays, certainly, I think we'll be at capacity, but again, we're closed Mondays. We close early on Sunday. Monday, Tuesday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are typically, just okay. But
Can you say those one more time?
we're closed on Mondays. Okay. We close early on Sunday.
What are the hours?
Operating hours are 11:30 to 1 a.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. On Sunday, it's 11:30 to 12. Based on 6 years of operating history, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the lights are the place is empty well before 1 a.m. Friday, Saturday, sure. We stop serving at 10 o'clock, food. Managers and the host will not, we'll certainly tell everybody that we're no longer serving food. And, people sometimes will come in and have a cocktail and stay until 12 o'clock. It's very, very rare that there are people in the restaurant past 12.
Those hours aren't for outdoor dining.
Now, outdoor is shut down according to the code, right, at 11 o'clock.
And has Brick and Brew with its different locations, do they typically have a problem with rowdy patrons?
In 6 years of operating history, the police have probably been at our location about 5 times. 3 of those have been somebody has fallen ill, either heart attack or they need medical attention. The other 2 are basically people walk into our location that are intoxicated and they won't leave, and we need to call, police for assistance.
Okay, so do you typically take measures and don't want that kind of crowd?
Look, it's, again, 6 years of successful operating history. I was reminded today of our president. presence in the community as a leader. Last year, we won are you familiar with the Haverford Partnership for Economic Development?
Yes.
Okay, so last year, we received the Standing Ovation Award from HPED, and that is basically a vote from the people in the community for all businesses. You know, who has, there was an email sent today, kind of timely. The Standing Ovation Award is presented to a business of the highest standards, offering exceptional customer service, an attractive, welcoming environment, and engagement in the community life of Haverford Township. Businesses who have won this in the past are ineligible to win for the next 3 years. Past winners include Kettle and Brick and Brew.
Okay, and in terms of working with the community, will you take efforts to make sure that the patrons on the roof are not interfering with the lives of neighboring property owners or tenants?
Our integrity and character speak for itself. We want nothing but, again, a successful use of the space and making sure that all of our neighbors are happy.
Okay, and there was discussion about the prior zoning application from last year. Was Brick and Brew involved with that? Because it was filed on behalf of Oakmont Realty Partnership. But can you explain whether there was any involvement with Brick and Brew?
There was no.
Okay. Whereas in terms of the architect, were you working with the architect at that time in order to kind of help get an idea of what the rooftop might look like?
Let's see, rephrase it, could you
Sure.
explain again?
Brian Newswanger was the architect under that application. Were you working with him and talking with him at that time to try to get an idea about what might go up on the rooftop?
We were. I mean, look, again, we're in a constant effort to stay relevant, in a constant effort to compete against our peers. Sure. I mean, we need to have, again, a business model that keeps us current. And it needs to be forward-looking in that capacity as well.
Okay, and I've attached as Exhibit A5 the decision from the prior application that was on January 8th, 2019. Is that and there was a condition in there that stated there would be no public access to the permanent roof or any other part of the roof of the building. Is that the part of the prior order from which we're seeking a modification this evening?
It is.
Okay, and I mentioned it earlier, but Exhibit A6 is the letter from Joe Mattson, the attorney for Oakmont, indicating that the rooftop dining part of that application was being withdrawn without prejudice. Was Brick and Brew involved in that decision at all?
Was that?
Okay. When you were acquiring the property, was rooftop dining always a part of the discussion?
Yes.
Okay, and why is that?
Again, you know, in our eyes, Havertown, Haverford is our home, right? It's where we cut our teeth. If we're going to do a new project, we're going to design something that continues to keep us in a very competitive environment, keeps us relevant. I believe that we've had a positive impact on the community. A rising tide tends to lift all boats. You can look at Crossbar, you can look at Town Tap, you can look at, again, businesses that have done well along with us. Look, we all have Uber. I could be in Ardmore for $10 in under 6 minutes and be at the Bercy, or be at Tired Hands. I can get in an Uber and go to Wayne. I can go, right, we all have options with our free time, with our discretionary income. We need to continue to move forward and make Havertown a destination spot, right? Because we're in a very competitive environment, and let's let's keep the momentum going that we've helped create over the last 6 years. So we're very passionate about this. It's not something that we take lightly. If we're going to put our money into a project, we're going to be the best restaurant within a 20-mile radius. That's our goal.
Okay, and in terms of bringing this property up to that standard, what was the condition of the property when the property was purchased? And I guess, can you answer that question?
Yeah, I guess, after 20 years of operating history at the Oakmont, had a lot of wear and tear. And quite frankly, it needed to be, taken down to the studs and allows us to really deliver on our concept of a new restaurant in Haverford Town. So, again, we were very excited to have the opportunity, the privilege to take over the Oakmont, continue the legacy that Brendan and his brothers started. And, we're happy to grab that baton and take it to the next level.
And do you have an idea roughly how much Brick and Brew is going to be investing in this property?
$2 million.
And in terms of the finances, is the income from the rooftop dining needed in order to guarantee the long-term success of this business?
Look, nothing's guaranteed in this business. The failure rate in this business is extremely high. The rooftop part of the business model allows us for the highest probability of success over the long term.
Okay, and I think you mentioned some other options, but in terms of competitors, would it have been possible to go into the Oakmont, say, with a proverbial fresh coat of paint and just turn this around and stay competitive?
Look, we went through this immediate when we bought the Plumstead. A lot like the Oakmont, an institution in a small town. No, we gutted the Plumstead, we did our thing. We're going to do the same thing with the Oakmont.
Okay, and would you expect a return on the investment if you renovated the building but just kept it to the Oakmont footprint with the karate studio?
The expectations of a Brick and Brew restaurant are, I would say, are very high, especially with what we just did in Malvern. We're going to cover the Philadelphia Inquirer, pretty much for the decor and the style of the restaurant, and assisting that business community, putting some, the trajectory was already positive, and when we stepped in, the momentum continued. So, again, we're focused on delivering a very interesting concept that will assist the township, the Haverford Town, and again, becoming a landmark destination for diners.
Okay, and this property is located in the C3 commercial district. You have driven around this district, I'm sure.
I get my hair cut on the Strip. I'm sorry to see Longlow's West close shop, but I've eaten there many times. Been to the Oakmont many times.
Okay, and would you say that this this proposal, if the relief is granted, is going to alter the essential character of that neighborhood?
The character? Alter the character? I think it's going to blend in very well. I don't expect any, in 6 years of operating history, we're going to improve the aesthetics of the building. We're going to improve the character of of the building. And again, we have a positive impact in the communities that we develop. So I truly expect that it'll have a positive influence on the character of that area. And so.
Okay, and the vicinity there, Eagle Road and East Darby Road, is there typically a good deal of traffic in that area?
To say the least, yes.
Okay, and I know that you're proposing to put people outside on the rooftop here. Is there currently outside dining? I think it was already testified, but there's already people that are talking outdoors during seasonal operations now.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, and there are obviously people and cars and trucks, and a bus route is on Eagle Road as well, correct?
That's right, there's a bus route, there's the Wawa. It's a very busy intersection.
Okay, and would you expect that the noise from people talking on the rooftops gonna be any louder than it, all that together?
My expectations are that you would not be able to hear anybody having a conversation on the rooftop of the oak mountain.
Okay, and do you agree with Brian's earlier testimony that the parapet in the front of the building and the graduated wall going down the side, as well as the mature trees outside, are gonna reduce the level of visibility to the property owner across the street?
I agree with his expert testimony, yes.
Okay, and how about as to noise? Is that also going to have a positive impact?
Yes, the trees and, again, having the lower seating would have a positive impact on the lower noise.
Do you mean a positive impact as compared to the current condition, or a positive impact to mitigate additional noise that would occur from conducting business on the rooftop?
I think the trees, the addition of the trees, and then the seating, the lounge seating would reduce the noise level.
So it would reduce the increase, is what you're saying.
I know we're also here for the parking that is required as part of the addition here. There was discussion about the lease with Bryn Mawr Trust. That's Exhibit A7. Have you had a chance to look at that lease agreement?
I have, yes.
And is that, is Brick and Brew the new tenant assignee under that lease?
We are.
Okay. And in the fourth paragraph, it mentions that there are 26 spaces that would be made available for use. Does that sound fair?
That's absolutely accurate.
Okay. And although it was mentioned earlier that the property is down the road, how far away, do you have any idea how far away Bryn Mawr Trust's lot is?
It is 1/10 of a mile.
Okay. So certainly within walking distance.
Yes,
And will you direct patrons and your staff to go there?
absolutely.
Okay. And you have 7 spaces in the back of the building?
We do.
Okay. And Grace Chapel's parking policy is Exhibit A8.
Yes.
How did you come in possession of that?
I walked up and spoke to Tara and asked her what her policy was, and they said, you know what, let me check with the pastor. Pursued the conversation via email, and Tara wrote up a document and sent it over, and that's the policy in the exhibit.
Okay. And in addition to the parking we just discussed, is there public parking on the street and in lots as well?
There's public parking adjacent to the gas station. Yeah, there's metered parking as well. Yes.
Okay. And do any of your customers get to your existing restaurant by means other than vehicles that require parking spaces?
Sure, yeah, we have a lot of, you know, a lot of people that'll ride their bike up on a nice day. It's definitely a walking community. A lot of our neighbors walk over and sit down and have a nice, pizza and enjoy the space.
Okay. And do you think that the relief that you're requesting is necessary for the reasonable use of this property?
We do.
Okay. I have nothing further for this witness at this time.
Thanks. Dan, as you may know, we're done at 11 o'clock because the door's locked, so we can't go past that. The board would like to hear from some of the neighbors that are here since they came out. And maybe some of them can't be here at the next hearing. So could we stop here and we would pick up with cross of Mr. Dent at the next hearing?
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
So what we're going to look for, and going a little bit out of order, is any residents who anticipate they cannot be here at the next meeting, which is scheduled for September 19th. And Mr. Kane is going to call you up to have your opportunity to speak if you want. You don't have to testify today. You can testify at the next hearing, but they wanted to provide you that opportunity.
So is there anyone present that received certified mail that wants to address the board? Please come forward. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and address for the record, please?
Yeah, my name is Jim Blumenstock. I live at 1608 Woodmere Way, Havertown.
And how do you spell your last name?
Blumenstock. And I am
You're 1608 Woodmere.
1608 Woodmere.
And where's that
That is in Woodmere Park.
in relation to this?
Yes, the reason I received certified mail is I am the owner, and my business is the owner of 27 Eagle Road. So I'm basically the neighbor to 29, the adjacent property.
So you received the certified mail at your business?
No, at my home address, which is the registered address for the business. Like, I don't get mail at 27 Eagle because I have a tenant there. So there's a tenant at 27 Eagle. I am the owner of 27 Eagle. Used to be the owner of 29 Eagle as well.
What would you like to tell us?
Yeah, I can't make the next meeting, so that's why I just wanted to jump in for a few minutes. I am totally supportive of positive and progressive change, especially in the business community. Anything that makes our community a little bit richer and better, I think is a positive thing, and we've seen a lot of great changes with like, tables, or, outdoor dining and things like that. I also was a past retail owner in Wayne, so I understand the issues of competitiveness and trying to stay at the leading edge. But I think it's important that certain questions are asked, along the way. So I just have a couple questions as it kind of relates to the neighborhood and the sort of look and feel of the neighborhood and, how things would possibly work. Because of the way the room's set, you can't really see the drawings. I tried to take a peek at the break, so I don't really have a feel for, exactly what all was presented, but I just have a couple questions. Again, how high up from the roof are we talking about this structure and the layout? Is it 10, 12,
Are you talking about the parapet?
Well, the parapet and then the trees themselves, how high? You're talking about 10 to 12 feet at first, but will they grow higher than that?
Just to make it easy, could you just direct the questions to the board?
Sure.
And the
Yep.
board will
Yep.
then help you get
And
those
the
answers.
reason I ask is, there is a sort of a line and a look to the buildings and the architecture in that neighborhood, and just, interested in trying to maintain that and wanting to see, what that,
Well, you
that looks
should direct your questions to the board,
okay,
and we're just going to
Sure.
ask you guys to address them as best you can. Not necessarily tonight, not on the
Yeah.
spot,
okay.
but at some point. So
Okay. And I understand just a little bit from a quick look that it does extend into 29 Eagles Roof, but I wasn't sure how far it does extend. And then how high the, sort of the wall would be, or, the rail around the structure.
And since Mr. Blumenstock won't be here next time, could he look at your drawings after this tonight?
Okay. We talked a little bit about operating hours and days. Would the operating hours be exactly the same? Is that what's proposed as the current Brick and Brew? Would they stay that same set of days and set of hours?
they said they would operate within the hours set forth in the code for
Okay,
sidewalk, whatever the correct terminology is.
Outdoor season dining.
Outdoor seasonal.
and I could be wrong, but I understand that when Town Tap presented their outdoor dining, because of neighbors' sort of challenges and the neighborhood, that they were asked to limit their outdoor dining hours. And I'm not sure if I'm correct there, but that's what I've been told by staff there. So I was just wondering if that's a possibility, as opposed to going late, all the way to the 11 o'clock hour, perhaps.
That establishment was never before this board, so
Okay,
we didn't impose any hours, and they haven't requested that they be permitted to operate outside the hours indicated in the code.
okay. And the access to the roof, I'm just curious about how that happens, because I see a stairwell. Is that within the same exact footprint as currently exists? Because I know that that back area is tight back there. And then, when a business makes a presentation about, how they'll run themselves and, for instance, the lack of live music or music, how is that business held to that decision and that presentation,
They're held to the representations they made to this board. And if there's a complaint, the code enforcement office will issue a citation.
Okay. And then I guess the question would be, I didn't hear any talk of insurance and liability, because this is your first experience with rooftop, I think, since I've been here 20 years. I haven't seen any other organizations with rooftop dining. How is liability insurance and extra liability insurance sort of,
I think that's outside the scope of our purview.
yeah, okay,
The liability is theirs. Presumably, they'll insure it
right,
appropriately.
yeah. Just because there's sort of, neighbors associated with now another level of doing business. And I know there was talk about that there would be no standing at the bar or, beyond the bar. But we all know that most bars have that. And, I know the bars in town, especially, when I've been in Brick and Brew, it's full, inch to inch. I don't, again, know how that's best managed. But, usually if it's hot and it's popular, it's full. And so, I think total square footage is more the factor than, how many seats are necessarily in the facility. And I think, and I was just curious about whether the lease for parking is proposed with BMT or it is finalized, that additional parking.
10-year.
Okay. Yeah, and last question is just about the lines presented, as you're looking left and right or north and south, the architectural lines of that block, how is that going to be all sort of considered in the mix of, you'll have 10, 12, 15-foot trees here, but then nothing for the rest of the block.
The rendering that's on the
Yeah.
board is part of Exhibit A3, labeled A2.0. So if you turn to your right, that's a rendering of the facade on Darby and Eagle.
Okay.
You're
Yeah, I'll take
given
it.
a smaller version of that.
Okay,
That's the rendering
okay.
with the trees.
All right, I'll take a better look when I get a chance. Okay, I think that's all I had. It was just, to present a couple questions and, thoughts about making sure we have all the
And we
answers.
are always interested to know if you're in favor or opposed to the application.
I'm in favor of the general proposal to making town, again, like I said, a more positive and progressive place to eat, do business, have a chance
That's
to.
the town, this application.
Yeah. No, I am in favor of the application as long as, you guys get the answers and it all works according to code. And, we operate as good neighbors and support each other, so, okay.
And now, each of the attorneys has an opportunity to ask questions of you.
Sure.
First, questions?
No questions, thanks.
Any questions from board members?
No.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks.
Anyone else that received certified mail,
Not certified mail, no.
regular mail? Please come forward. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and address for the record, please?
Allison Carpenter at 5 East Eagle Road in Apartment B, Havertown.
What would you like to tell the board tonight, Allison?
So I've been a resident of 5 East Eagle Road, Apartment B for 16 years with my husband and daughter. And we've lived through a number of things that have happened at that intersection when we understood that moving in. It's a very busy intersection. As was mentioned before, you know, there's lots of traffic, there's lots of foot traffic, there's now a bus. The Kelly Center plays music all the time. It's loud. So one of the things that I understand that, you know, the argument to, well, it's already loud, we're going to add more noise. One of the things that has always been upsetting to me as a resident is that there's never really, or it seems as though there isn't much consideration of the fact that families live in this commercial area. A number of things have happened, and it just doesn't seem like we're ever even notified that it's up for, you know, consideration. We weren't even sent a letter about this. We were sent a letter by our realtor company. So this is the first time we've ever gotten a notice about anything like this. I don't know if that's the responsibility of the realtor company to do that, but, you know. So anyway, you know, we're committed residents. Our daughter has been in the school district since kindergarten. You know, our apartment is our home. And also, I preface that with, we are Brick and Brew customers. We like Brick and Brew. I think it's a really great restaurant and really great business for the township. And again, as the previous gentleman said, you know, we didn't get a chance to really see from the audience exactly what this looks like. I know that they talked and focused a lot on 34 Eagle Road, East Eagle Road, which is the building directly across. But our building is on the same side, and I'm not really sure if there's any sort of retaining sound barrier between the rooftop dining and our building. Sound travels, it travels through trees. I've lived there for 16 years. Trees do very little to muffle sound. So, you know, just wondering what the impact on our building, you know, our neighbors, and all of the other families that we know in the area, that we've talked to a lot when a lot of things happen in the area, aside from just 34 East Eagle Road. You know, kids have to go to bed and get ready, you know, to go to school the next day. There are children that go to the school district that live in the area. My daughter's one of them. And having a business that's open until 1 in.the morning every night might be an impact, especially if they're walking across past our building, that intersection, to get to the parking at Bryn Mawr Trust. We have these lovely little buttons that change the walk signals, which are great, but they make a lot of noise and people constantly push them all the time. It's these kind of things that people, when they make these decisions, put them in, they don't really think that it's going to be that big of a deal. But when you live 5 feet from where that noise is and you hear it constantly, it is. So we'll have people walking. If they actually even decide to park over at Bryn Mawr Trust, they'll probably park where we all try to park. There isn't really much parking for residents. You know, we've lived here 16 years and we really don't even know where we're supposed to actually legally park. So we just try to find a parking spot wherever we can. Oftentimes it is in Grace Chapel, which we're very thankful that they allow us to park there. But again, until 1 in.the morning or more, walking past our building and, you know, people who've had alcohol or louder, than people who are walking down the street. And, you know, I had something a little bit more formal to say, but then after listening to everyone's testimony and hearing a little bit more, a lot of questions have come up. And, you know, to say whether or not I'm for it, I am. When we found out that Brick and Brew was going to be at Oakmont, we were actually pretty excited because it's a great space. It's a lot bigger. The current Brick and Brew is really crowded. And, you know, it's not always easy to find a seat and a table. So we thought it was a great thing. And then when we found out there was going to be rooftop seating, it kind of put a little bit of a damper because it just kind of felt like yet another example of not really taking into consideration that people live there in the area. So, so yeah, I guess my one question would be the part of, you know, over here where there's going to be, I guess, a bathroom, right? Is that going to impact us in any sort of way? A bathroom, and then also, you know, is there going to be a retaining sound wall on that side, or is it just going to continue to travel directly over to our building until 11 o'clock at night, and probably later, because, you know, it's hard for, as a business, you don't want to tell people that they have to leave. And if it's a space that's going to be encouraging conversation and people to get together and, you know, which is great, but it's going to create a lot of noise. So, yeah, I guess those are just my concerns and questions. You know, like I said, I would be in favor as long as it really isn't going to negatively impact the people that live in the area. A number of people have lived there for many years. We've lived there, like I said, for 16. Our neighbors who are actually directly going to be impacted because they're on the side that faces this have been there over 20 years. So we have longtime residents in the area who know much more probably than anyone else in this room what it's like to be in that area at all times of the day. So, yeah, that's all I have to say.
Okay. And in a moment, we need to stop the hearing, but questions?
I just have a few.
Go ahead.
Very quick. Sure. Ma'am, would you say parking is difficult in the area right now?
It was very difficult until the township building opened up here, and now it's less difficult, but I don't really even know if we're allowed to be parking in the old township lot, but we do.
Okay. And based on your knowledge of the neighborhood and based on what you've observed tonight as far as the plans, do you think a rooftop deck would change the atmosphere of your neighborhood?
I think it would make it more lively and much more, you know, there'd be much more foot traffic, much more, you know, many more people around. So, I mean, that can be seen as a positive. Again, you know, you could see it as a negative too, depending on how the impact is on the people in the area.
Okay. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I take that as a yes. You think it would change the atmosphere for good or for bad, depending on your perspective.
Yes.
It would change the atmosphere. Okay. And do you understand that tonight, what we're dealing with is not just the move of Brick and Brew. This is specifically with regard to a variance for parking, where they're going to asking for permission to put this on without adding any new parking except what's been discussed with the Bryn Mawr Trust, which has already been dealt with, I guess, the last time they were here. But you understand that that's what this issue is the rooftop deck?
Yes.
And permission not to have to get more parking?
Yes.
Okay. Does that change your feeling on whether you're in favor of it? Are you in favor of those particular items?
Am I in favor of more parking?
Of them having a rooftop deck without adding any parking?
Oh, I mean, you know, the whole entire facility is going to add, you know, yeah, Haverford Town's a walking community, but this facility is going to bring people in, from all over their, you know, a number of different municipalities and townships and other people from other areas coming in, which is great for Havertown, but, you know, again, it would, you know, make it even, I don't know. It's hard to say because, you know, gosh. Am I in favor of the rooftop? As a consumer, I would be in favor of it. As a resident, I'm not so sure. You know, I'm concerned. You know, it's not that we would live in that apartment for the rest of our lives, but, you know, as tenants, renters are entitled to the right for quiet enjoyment, right? So the ability to be able to live in your space without having much noise pollution and much noise disturbance. So even if we are no longer in that space and other people are there, they're still entitled to the same rights as we would be. So,
Thank you.
yeah, sorry if that wasn't an exact answer. I'm conflicted. I really do like Brick and Brew, I really do. But I really also, after 16 years of living in a space where I feel like we constantly get overlooked, it's a little bit difficult.
Any other questions? Ben? I don't see it. No? Any questions from the board?
No.
Ed?
No.
Bill?
I have one. Ms. Carpenter, you said that you've been a patron at the existing Brick and Brew, which has outdoor dining currently.
Yep.
And as a resident, you're properly concerned about noise and particularly in the evenings. Have you noticed whether by your proximity to the existing Brick and Brew or as a patron of Brick and Brew, that the outdoor dining space there has been troublesome to you from a noise point of view? Is your experience with the outdoor dining that they have had? Because we've heard testimony that they're trying to maintain essentially a similar style of dining.
Yeah, I mean, so the current location of Brick and Brew isn't really close enough at all for us to be able to hear anything. So, you know, so we don't experience that in that sort of sense. And that current outdoor dining is, what is it, like 6 or so tables, maybe 8 tables, I'm not really sure. There isn't a bar right there. You go into the building, it's really loud, but, you know. So yeah, I mean, like, if it was as quiet as the outdoor dining at the current Brick and Brew, then great, that would be fine. But 50 people makes me a little bit concerned about if that's
Definitely
possible.
different. It's definitely different. Thank you.
Okay, with that, we're going to continue this case to our next regularly scheduled meeting on September 19th, at which point we will pick up the cross of Mr. Dent. We're adjourned.